Welcome back. Hillary Clinton looking to capitalize on the female vote in the 2016 election. But Mrs. Clinton is not the only woman running for the top office in the land. Joining me right now is former Hewlett-Packard CEO and current Republican candidate for president, Carly Fiorina. Carly, it's great to have you back on the program.
It's great to be with you,
Good
Maria.
to see you. Do you think that the issues of the day are resonating with people? Talk to us about what your campaign is. How do you stand apart in the 16-person field of the GOP presidential election?
Well, first, 80% of the American people think we now have a professional political class that's more focused on its own power, position, and privilege than getting anything done. In other words, people are sick of the status quo of politics and politics as usual. And they're right, because we have festering problems. How long has the border been insecure? 25 years. How long have there been sanctuary cities? 15 years. How long has the VA been a scandal? 20 years. It goes on and on. So they look to someone from the outside who's qualified to challenge the status quo. Second, of course, we need to get this nation's economy going and growing again. And that means we need somebody who understands how it actually works. And that the engine of economic growth in this nation has always been new businesses, small businesses, family-owned businesses who create 2/3 of the new jobs and employ half the people. And finally, people are afraid of what's happening in the world. The world is a more dangerous and a more tragic place when we are not leading. And we are not leading. And I know more foreign leaders than anyone else running, with the possible exception of Hillary Clinton. Only I didn't do photo ops with Vladimir Putin or the royal family of Saudi or the Chinese leadership. I have had substantive meetings. And when we don't stand by our allies or confront our adversaries, which is not what we're doing right now, then the world becomes a very dangerous place. And people know that.
I want to talk to you about foreign policy because I think this is really front and center. But also, we've been having a debate this morning about the economy. We're talking about a 2% grower. Corporate earnings are not great this morning. That's what's pressuring markets. How do you create jobs? Do you want to focus on the small business sector, or is it just big government and lower taxes?
Well, look, we have an economy now that is characterized in industry after industry by crony capitalism. Let's call it what it is. And crony capitalism happens when you have very big government and business bulks up to deal with this big, complicated government. So whether it's banking, community banks are getting destroyed, Wall Street banks are getting bigger. Healthcare, insurance companies are merging, drug companies are merging, hospitals are going out of business. So we need to go back to where does growth really come from, and where growth has always come from. The engine of job creation, innovation, and growth has always been small business, family-owned business, new business. You know, Maria, I started out as a secretary in a 9-person real estate firm, and those little companies can't make it now. So we're now, for the first time in U.S. history, we're destroying more businesses than we're creating. And it's not the big businesses that are destroyed, although they are putt-putting along because this economy isn't very robust. I also think we need to acknowledge that we are tangling people's lives up in webs of dependence. And so we don't have enough people who are encouraged to move forward in their lives. They're laying back in their lives, and that doesn't help any of us.
And their wages haven't moved.
That's been an issue. And Carly, I wanted to say thank you for coming in and answering our questions, because that differentiates yourself as a candidate right now. Absolutely. You walked in this studio and you sat down with all of us and you're willing to answer all our questions.
Voters tell me all that all the time. Thanks for answering questions.
And that's a huge thing that's really making you a different candidate that is out there right now. You've been very critical of the president's newly inked nuclear deal with Iran. You've inked many deals yourself of a different kind in the business world. You've been critical of that Iran deal. What would you have done differently?
Well, first, he broke every rule of negotiation. So, yes, I've negotiated a lot of deals, and there's some cardinal rules. One, know what your goals are and stick to them. He didn't. He gave up on every goal. Two, walk away. Sometimes you have to walk away from the table to demonstrate that you're serious about achieving your goals. Not only did we never walk away, we just kept talking and talking and talking. And number three, never celebrate a deal until you have the deal you want. So when he walked into the Rose Garden 2.5 months ago and declared victory, guess what the Iranians did? They kept negotiating. What we have now, unfortunately, is a very dangerous deal. And whether or not Congress manages to stop it, and I hope they will, the rest of the world has moved on. And so what I have said publicly, and I'll say it again this morning, is on day one in the Oval Office, I would make a phone call to the supreme leader of Iran. He may not take the phone call, but he would get the message. And the message is this: until and unless you open every military facility, every nuclear facility to real full and unfettered anytime, anywhere inspections. We're going to cut off your access to the SWIFT system so that we make it as hard as possible for them to move money around the global financial system. Because right now, money is flowing in. And that makes them a far more dangerous adversary. One last thing. Know whose side of the table your partners are negotiating on. China and Russia have never been on our side of the table. They've been on their side of the table. And their side of the table is they want Iran's economy opened, and they've now succeeded in doing that.
How tough will it be to roll this back? I mean, the Iran deal, he keeps saying adamantly, any challenges will be vetoed.
Well, it's going to be very tough. And that's why I think whatever the deal gets done, by the way, the UN's approved it, the EU's approved it, China and Russia have approved it, the world's moved on. I think that's why really drastic unilateral action has to be taken by the next commander-in-chief, which I would be prepared to do, which gets at their money flow. But of course, we now know already, what are our Arab allies doing? They're arming. They're arming to the teeth. By the way, the other phone call I would make that same day is to Bibi Netanyahu, to reassure him that we will stand with the state of Israel. And it's important to know that even our Arab allies, who don't always agree with Israel, let's face it, but they watch how we're treating Israel, and they conclude our friendship with the United States doesn't mean anything anymore. And so they're going their own way, and that makes the region very dangerous.
And foreign policy has been the one area where we are making mistake after mistake, and we're wondering if these airstrikes against ISIS is actually helping.
Well, I suppose it's better than doing nothing. But here's what our Arab allies have asked us for. Our Arab allies are fighting ISIS as we speak. I mean, Egypt is fighting them on the ground as we speak. Saudi Arabia is fighting them. Jordan is fighting them. The Kurds are fighting them. And all of those allies have asked us for specific things. Bombs, materiel, sharing intelligence, arms. We haven't done any of it. And so I would hold a Camp David summit immediately with those Arab allies and say, what do you need from us to defeat this evil? Because they know it's their fight. We forget. They have lost more people to ISIS than anyone else. More Muslims are being killed by ISIS than Christians or Jews.
Carly, can I ask a quick question?
Real quick.
Hillary's playing the gender card. What would a head-to-head with Hillary and you look like?
Well, wouldn't that be fun? Wouldn't that be fun? Because, you know, if Hillary Clinton debates me, she can't talk about being a mother and a grandmother. Me too. She can't talk about being a woman. Me too. What she's going to have to talk about is her lack of trustworthiness, her lack of a track record of leadership, what her policies will do to this nation. And guess what? On that ground, we can win.
Great question.
Great to have you here. Thanks.
Carly, we know you have to catch a flight. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Presidential candidate Carly Fiorina joining us this morning. Don't forget